Welcome back to Operation Evil. This is episode 74, the COVID murder. I'm your host, Nyoka,
I'm Rachel.
and we're just going to jump right on in.
Sorry, this is Rachel. I did not have the microphone to where it should be.
Well, I'm glad that you're changing that.
I'm so excited to hear about this story.
I was really excited to research it. So this is the COVID murder. And I want to kind of bring you back to March 2020 when the world kind of fell apart and how crazy and chaotic and scary that time was. So the coronavirus, it was, everything just shut down. The world just shut down. So the coronavirus outbreak began in Wuhan, China in December 2019, and it touched every area of the world. Millions of people. China.
You got to say China.
Wuhan, China. In December 2019. It touched everywhere in the world. Millions of people would get sick and hundreds of thousands of people died. The World Health Organization declared the coronavirus an outbreak for a global pandemic in March 11th. I was going to say in March, but it was March 11th, 2020. In the United States, the first coronavirus-related activity restrictions were issued on March 12th, 2020, when a community in New York was declared to be a containment area. And then in March 20th, New York City State reported that more than 15,000 people had tested positive for COVID-19. So it was just a chaotic time. I remember us being at work and they're like, okay, pack up, take your stuff home. We're going to be working from home for a while. And we're like, whoa, this is crazy. So what about if somebody used this time, this scary outbreak of COVID, to cover up a murder? And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. Someone did use COVID as a cover up. And this is how the story went. Gretchen Anthony graduated from Shore Regional High School in 1987, and former classmates would describe her as a beautiful person inside and out. She had a twin brother who lived in Florida, as well as her mother, but she also had a sister who lives at the Jersey Shore. Gretchen moved to Florida in the early 2000s and became a devoted mother to her 12-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. Her daughter was her everything, her world. So it would become concerning when Gretchen would soon stop replying to everyone in her family. So it all begins with text messages. The text to Gretchen's family and friends from her phone began on March 23rd, 2020, and it started with this text message that said, "Good morning. Tested positive for coronavirus early this morning. That means I have to stay here for at least 2 weeks." Her daughter replied back and said, "Okay, I really hope you get better." The text over the next couple of days described a worsening condition and admitting herself to the Jupiter Medical Center's emergency department. Then another text came in, and this one claimed that she was transferred to another facility ran by the CDC. But the problem is that this facility didn't even exist. And when no one was able to reach out to her by phone, her friends and family no longer believed that Gretchen was sending those texts to begin with. And that's when they called the police for help. But before we get into that, I want to go into what happens after the police were called. In an interview with 48 Hours, kind of goes into that. It's with Gretchen's friends. Well, one of her friends named Kelly Hanna, and then other people that was just associated with the case. And it kind of revealed more information about what's going on in the background. So the interview goes like this. Kelly Hanna, the friend, said, the news is saying it's serious. And then all of a sudden, numbers are being reported and people are dying. It was hard for Gretchen Anthony's friends like Kelly Hanna to picture her friend dying of anything, much less a frightening virus that no one knew about. I mean, she was a picture of like fitness. She was 51, but she worked out at the gym very hard every day. She took her health very seriously. So her friend said that Gretchen was someone who was tremendously heart-centered, and she's just radiant, and she was very caring, a beautiful spirit. Now, another person in this interview was Miss Mixon, and she's a assistant state's attorney for Palm Beach County, and she got involved in this case early on, and she said that there was nothing that Gretchen wouldn't do for her daughter, and she hated being away from her. And after her divorce, friends said that Gretchen fell in love with David Anthony, and the two met at a local gym where he was a trainer. So the 48 Hours reporter, correspondent, Peter Van Sant, Peter Van Sant. He was the one interviewing, and he said, I know, right? It's Sant. I'm positive. I said it wrong, like, for a minute. He said, was this David guy, like, was he like kind of a rock star at the gym? And her friend was like, oh yeah, he was like the young hot trainer for sure. And someone else that worked for, like, that was his boss, was like, he had a huge presence. The person that owned the gym was Tabitha Hopkins. So she got to know David pretty well. And she said that he brought in like all kinds of new members. So Kelly was like, David was intelligent, well-spoken, charming. Didn't have to tell anybody like anything. There was definitely attraction between David and Gretchen, and no one could question that. There was sparks flying. So that attraction.
Sorry, my chair's making noises.
Way to go. So their attraction like led to the couple getting married at an Elvis chapel in Las Vegas in 2015.
Cute.
Right. And her friend Kelly said that they just seemed like the happiest couple ever. And they're like, so she found the man of her dreams. And she's like, absolutely. David was a phenomenal step parent. And she called him a bonus dad.
Oh.
But friends say that the couple's dream, like their life came apart in late 2019 and they separated. And then David moved out of their shared home and he moved in with his mother. Kelly said it was kind of sounded like they both just lost themselves a little bit and they were searching like for their own self-identity. Now, Gretchen's inner circle was dealing with a potential life or death situation. And then so now we're back to like this story where she's like sick with this virus nobody knows about, right? So everybody's concerned. And then there's this series of these bizarre text messages from her phone. And the interviewer is like, so what does the family do with all these texts? And they said that the family finds the text messages were like worrisome, very alarming. And what disturbed everyone receiving these texts is that no one, not even Gretchen's daughter, had received a phone call from her. So they found that suspicious. There's so many things that were going wrong, including texts.
You might say it, but like, did the text sound like her talking? Like it was her?
They didn't say either way. But I think what threw them off was like not talking to her over the phone. And it was only text messages and then soon that stopped too. So when the texts start claiming that she was transferred to the offsite medical facility ran directly by the CDC in Belle Glade, more than an hour away in Central Florida, but they realized that this place like doesn't even exist. Now, David Ehrenberg, he was the state attorney for Palm Beach County, and he said clearly whoever sent those text messages were trying to take advantage of the pandemic, of the fear out there, and trying to just exploit the situation. And that's when the family and friends reached out to law enforcement to do a welfare check on Gretchen. The 911 call said, "I need to get help from my friends that's missing. I don't know how to put it into words. I know she's in very grave danger right now." So the police detectives reached out. Let me back up a little bit. Jupiter Police Detective Jared Kenderson caught the case on the night shift. And he said that they reached out to the medical center where she supposedly went for the coronavirus, and they didn't have any record of Gretchen even being a patient at their facility during this time period at all. And that became a huge concern. So desperate for clues, police like checked out the medical center's parking lot. They're looking into all of this. There's just no trace of her. Now, he said, the detective, they did end up finding her car. It was abandoned in the parking lot of the medical center. And they said what was worrisome, what was inside of the car, and it was her purse just sitting there in plain sight.
Oh my gosh.
So why would a woman not have her purse on her? Especially if she checked into the hospital.
Do we know like the timeline, like how long after those texts started?
Yes.
They found the purse?
Yes, there's going to be a timeline. I'm going to go through all of it with you. And I'm glad that you asked that, because there is a timeline from when all these texts start to finding her car, all of these things. So the detective's like, this is alarming because a woman like always has her purse on her. That's like the normal anyway.
Yeah.
And Peter Van Saint. Why can't I say that?
Just call him Peter.
Peter said that if Gretchen Anthony is not in a facility and not in a hospital anywhere being treated for COVID, if she doesn't have COVID, then where is Gretchen? And they're like, that was the $1 million question. No one knew where she was. So on March 25th, 2 days after they started receiving the text messages, police conducted a wellness check and found no one at home. The next day, on March 26th, 5 days had passed since anyone had seen Gretchen. And the Jupiter police canvassed the neighborhood, wearing body cams and looking for any leads. And they were shocked when a neighbor approached them to say that early on the morning of Saturday, March 21st, she heard a really serious woman scream, like she was being attacked. And then she heard the woman scream, "No," and something about "it hurts, stop it." Did this neighbor call 911 though? No.
Yikes.
Yeah. The detective said that some people are just apprehensive about calling the police. And the interviewer is like, well, when you heard that story from the neighbor, like, what were you thinking? And he was like, I'm thinking that something definitely happened at Gretchen Anthony's home that Saturday morning. So officers became even more concerned when another neighbor told them that he later noticed like a soapy substance flowing from underneath Gretchen's garage door. And I believe I found a picture of the driveway of this, and you can see like the dried chemicals on there. I'll post it on Facebook.
Huh.
Yeah, you can see like the soapy stains coming from there. So that means somebody was cleaning, right?
So like grubbing something.
Yeah. So it's coming from the garage, underneath the garage through the driveway, like in that kind of flow. Now, the detective said that they discovered that her entrance door that leads from her patio into her garage, that door was locked and it had the key broken off in the deadbolt. So could Gretchen be inside? Investigators waited no time finding out. Miss Mixon said they forced entry into the garage and there was no Gretchen inside. They noticed that there was a strong, like pungent smell of a cleaning agent in the garage. And with their body cams rolling, investigators searched the home several times. They found evidence suggesting a violent struggle, a broken picture frame, shards of glass on Gretchen's bed, a stained towel. There was a piece of cloth that looked like it had like a blood-like substance on it. And they got a huge break when they discovered neighbors had taken photos of a black Nissan pickup truck parked near Gretchen's home after the terrifying screams. And Peter asked, like, do we know who owns this black Nissan pickup truck? And the detective said David Anthony, which is Gretchen's husband. Her estranged husband. They separated. Okay. So his vehicle was obviously there that morning. Investigators learned from family and friends that Gretchen actually filed for a divorce in February 2020. And that's when David moved out and moved in with his mother. And that's when David's former boss, Tabitha Hopkins, said that he became increasingly unstable. She said that he regressed behavior-wise and slowly became harder to manage. Gretchen's family told investigators she worried about the safety of herself after the separation. So she had security cameras installed throughout her home and in her garage. Investigators discovered that Gretchen had actually filed for divorce just weeks before she disappeared. So that happened at the end of February, and then this is going on in March. So Peter was like, well, what is she afraid of? And the detective said,
sorry.
No, you're good. The detective said that I was told that she had the cameras installed because David had returned to her home after he left. And that
like he would break into the house, or
I guess he just showed up one day and came, and she didn't feel comfortable. And that's when, I don't know, she was obviously scared of something for her to go through that trouble.
Yeah,
get all these cameras installed.
Yeah, something bad must have really spooked her, really scared her.
So it's really even scarier is that, so the detective's in there discovering a crime scene, right? And he noticed that the cameras that she had installed had been removed from the walls. And yeah, probably to destroy incriminating evidence. But he learned that while the cameras were gone, the images they recorded could be recovered from the cloud.
This guy's a jackass.
Yeah, he really is. Investigators sent a search warrant to Gretchen's service provider to pull the video from the cloud, and the images showed a man lurking on Gretchen's patio the morning that the neighbor heard the screams. And then they believed that this potential evidence could give them some insight as to where Gretchen was. And when they were waiting for that evidence to come back, investigators decided to find out what David knew about Gretchen's whereabouts. So they went to his mother's residence and with their body cams on, of course, and they're there's a whole video on this too on YouTube you can find with the body cam footage. So his mom's name is Susan Warner, and they go to her door and she's like, who is it? And the detective's like, Jupiter Police. Hello. Hi. Sorry to bother you.
I don't need to watch the video now.
David's mom said that she too had received like a concerning text from Gretchen with like the COVID, and that Gretchen's been in touch with me because she's at the CDC center and she has the virus. And the detective's like, okay, what CDC center is she at? And she was like, oh, I don't know. She texted me this morning and said she was there. I have the text. Would you like to see it? And the detective's like, yeah, I'd love to see it. And when officers asked her where her son was, they became alarmed because she said that he was going to Costa Rica. David's mother told them that he packed up his truck, and on Tuesday, March 24th, 2020, 3 days after Gretchen disappeared, he grabbed his dog Kobe and hit the road. Now that they know he is fleeing from the country, they're really suspicious of him, and he becomes a suspect. So
like, did everybody know at this point that they were getting a divorce?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was pretty known. And to add to like their suspicions, they were convinced that she was met with foul play when they did find her car abandoned in that parking lot with her purse sitting there in plain sight. So all this stuff is just adding up together. Now, video surveillance from the Jupiter Medical Center parking lot revealed that on March 24th, a tall white male exited the video and Gretchen was not seen at all in the footage. Now, they said it was a tall male, while David Anthony is about 6'7", 6'8". So
that's not tall at all.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So he freaking planted the vehicle.
Yeah, he went out of his way and put the vehicle there. So this is what we know so far. She's not there. Potential crime scene. Security cameras were taken. Car was abandoned. They see a male doing this on the video surveillance. And now he's going to Costa Rica. So that's a concern. So investigators are now convinced that he was definitely involved in her disappearance. And the only way to find Gretchen was to locate David. So they used cell phone pings to track his location as he drove across 6 states. And the manhunt was assisted by multiple law enforcement agencies. While tracking Gretchen's phone, it was pinging in the area of Pensacola, Florida, about 600 miles away. Her phone was on the move, and it was on the move with David's. So he had both of their phones. Investigators reported that tracking the cell phone records played a critical part in tracking David across Florida as he left a paper trail and a video trail. And you can even see at one point he's on video selling Gretchen's jewelry at a pawn shop in Florida. Yeah.
This dude had no idea about technology.
No. And the store owner actually remembered this whole thing, and he shared the memorable conversation that he had with David to the police. And David told him that the jewelry was left to him by a family member who died from COVID. So COVID is like David's favorite excuse. Now, the detectives, they were fearing the worst for Gretchen at this point. And as they continue to wait for evidence from Gretchen's home being processed and coming back from the lab, they issued a BOLO, which is a be on the lookout for David's black Nissan truck. Now, his vehicle was listed as a felony vehicle. And after digging into David's past, they learned some more stuff about David. They learned that David's original name was David Anthony Dutch, and he later changed his name to David Anthony.
Oh my God, brilliant. He just dropped the last name.
That's all he did. Yeah. So why would someone do that, right? Well, it could have something to do with he was a star college basketball player who decided one day to hold up a Blockbuster video store armed with a squirt gun and assaulted a police officer.
I'm not laughing about the event. I'm laughing how freaking stupid this guy is.
Yeah.
Round of applause for your brilliance.
Good job. Good job. So David had a history of just criminal conduct and reached a plea deal in each case he had, spending very little time in jail. And he changed his name, I guess, to escape his past.
Good job. I just can't get over how good of a job
he just dropped his last name. That's so funny. So his previous boss from the gym, Tabitha, said that she did notice something odd about David. She stated that although he was like very talented, he had like an amazing skill level. She said his moods would be like really high or really low. And as he became difficult to manage, she was forced to fire him in 2017, and she gave him a second chance a few years later. But by early 2020, he was just increasingly unstable. She would ask him, like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? You're not the same person I knew. And she was forced to fire him again. And then that's when she caught a glimpse of like the rage that he had inside. And she had never seen that look before. She just didn't recognize it. He was just so angry. Shaken, she like texted Gretchen and was like, and they were at the time separated, and she was like warning Gretchen, stay away from him. She said that he was crazy, and that this is the last time that she actually spoke to Gretchen, was just warning her, and that was February of 2020. And then a few weeks later, just 7 days before Gretchen disappeared, this happened. And it was Riviera Beach Police body cam video. And it's David saying, can I get up? And a female officer says, no, get down. And David's like, I'm standing up. And the female officer's like, get down. So police received a report that David was allegedly following teenage girls at a nearby shopping center. Once again, police body cams were rolling when they approached him. And that's when the female officer was like, get down. And with his dog, Kobe, just sitting quietly in the truck, David lashed out and was charged with resisting arrest. A male officer said, stop resisting me. Sir, flat on your face, hands out like an airplane. David just spent a few days in jail for that. Investigators learned he posted bail, and he was released just 3 days before Gretchen disappeared. So back to the manhunt. Back in time. March 27th, David's phone pings in Texas, more than 1,600 miles away. The next day, police get pings from David's phone in New Mexico. They reached out to the police there, and then they located the truck. The police pulled him over, and they asked him about Gretchen. And he told the police that she had COVID, and the last that he heard, she was in a CDC facility getting treatment for coronavirus. Police were able to obtain a search warrant for his vehicle, and it was packed with stuff. And it was all taken into custody. And at this time, though, the police didn't have enough evidence to make an arrest. So David and his dog, Kobe, walked away. Like literally, they walked away while they took his truck and his belongings.
He got pretty far.
He did get pretty far. Now, while that's processing, they were able to recover the cell phones, Gretchen's included, and they also found Amazon devices which use Alexa software. Police say that one of the devices recorded Gretchen's desperate cries for help. Another piece of evidence that was recovered were the security cameras that were missing from Gretchen's home. So the police were able to recover the footage from those from the cloud. And the security footage revealed an image of a figure lurking in the shadows of Gretchen's patio, waiting to ambush her on the last day she was seen alive. Other footage was too disturbing to release to 48 hours. including the moment Gretchen appears on the patio and a figure forces her into the garage. Investigators say that they heard Gretchen calling out to her Alexa device for help, and she screamed for Alexa to call 911. But Gretchen didn't know it, but unless if you program your Alexa device to do so, it does not call the police an emergency. So you guys just remember that you have to program it if you ever want to use that feature one day. The footage from the garage shows the last images of Gretchen alive. And at one point, they see this person grab her, muffle her screams, take her into the garage. The man shown doing this and placing items in her car. And then he looks up at the camera, snatches it down off the wall, and throws it on the floor. When Peter asks what is seen in the footage, the response is David. He is looking up into the camera. We know he killed her and he is the killer, and it was all the proof they needed to make an arrest. So on the evening of March 31st, Jupiter police detectives rushed to New Mexico and they located David walking his dog and made the arrest. During the interrogation, detectives made it clear that they were in search of the truth. We're in search of where is Gretchen Anthony. I wanted to be able to tell her family, tell her daughter that I know where she is. And that was very important to us, the detective said. Right away, David made it clear this was not going to be easy. He then makes up a story that she was traveling with him to El Paso in separate vehicles and she bolted. He said Gretchen was on the run because she discovered illegal activities at her company where she worked and someone was after her. Of course, the detectives did not buy his story, and they asked him about the text sent from her phone claiming that she had COVID and how there's no record of her at any hospital for COVID. David's response was like, okay, that doesn't mean anything. The detectives continued to push harder. They said, you had her phone, you sent the text, you planted her car, you're on video doing it. David responded that she had him do it. And when they confronted him with the evidence on Gretchen's own video surveillance and said that he put his hand over her mouth and dragged her into the garage, he still insisted that she was still alive. He insisted 35 times that she was alive. To switch tactics, they tried to appeal to David's bond with Gretchen's daughter. And one detective held up a photo of her daughter and asked him to look at her. And he said he loved her dearly. And he said how he was the one who taught her how to ride a bike and shoot a hoop and use her awareness. He said that he would never hurt her. The detective reminded him that he's actually hurting her indirectly by not letting them know where her mother was.
Mm-hmm.
And David said, you'll have to ask her. The detective said they can't ask her because she's dead. David still insists she's alive. David tries to dare the detective to prove otherwise. Detectives tell him it's on video, and David says there is no video of him killing her. They go back and forth, disagreeing with one another until the detectives decide it's time to take a break. One of the detectives returns after a while, and they asked David if he would like some water. So they were like playing the nice guy. And he decided to try like one last time, like one last emotional plea by playing audio, a recording of Gretchen's daughter, like begging David to tell the detectives where they can find her mom. And that didn't work either. He said he's raised that girl since she was 2 years old, and that wasn't her voice. So no more nice guy detective. That switched up right away.
So do we know, was that really her voice?
From what I understand, yes, it was. Yeah. It didn't say otherwise. After 2 more hours, David ended the interrogation by asking for a lawyer. Detectives left that interview not knowing where Gretchen's body was. And in the end, David was arrested for second-degree murder and the kidnapping of Gretchen Anthony. But days after his arrest, his dog Kobe was adopted by new owners. Good for Kobe. Poor thing. The prosecutor, David Ehrenberg, had evidence and a suspect in custody, but he knew getting a conviction wouldn't be easy because there was no body. He said that the most troubling thing for the family and for all of us, quite frankly, was that we did not have Gretchen's body. And when you don't have a body or a manner of death, those are challenging cases to prosecute. And David knew that. So while David was held in custody in Palm Beach County, Florida, a grand jury indicted him on the charge of kidnapping and raised the murder charge from second degree to first degree. The fact that Gretchen could be out there alone forever, like, really weighed heavily on her family. They wanted David to have life in prison, but they also wanted to find Gretchen. So in December 2020, they entered into a plea deal with David. And the deal was that David was to plead guilty to second-degree murder, reveal the location of Gretchen's remains, and serve 38 years in prison. And he accepts the plea deal. So on December 21st, he finally admits that he murdered his wife, and they were about to find Gretchen that day. So Gretchen's body was just located 3 miles from her house. Her body was behind a Walmart and next to a retirement home. Gretchen's family can finally lay her to rest and give her a proper burial.
Did he bury her in a field or just leave her somewhere behind the buildings?
You know what? I don't know. It just said that that's where she was found, but no details on how she was found. But an autopsy was performed. So at least we're going to get to know how she died. So the cause of death was stab wounds to the neck and torso. There was some defensive wounds, and she did fight for her life. It must have been so hard,
That makes sense why the neighbor heard what she heard.
The screaming and stop, and it hurts. I mean, Can you imagine being married to a man and loving him and having this family with him, and then you guys separate, and you realize in that moment the betrayal of the man that you used to love, the man that
gone.
Yes, and the man that helped you raise your daughter turn into this monster, and he's going to take your life. I can't even begin to relate to that. That's just awful. On January 14th, 2021, Gretchen's sister, Sarah Carey, and the rest of her family came face to face with David Anthony at his sentencing hearing. Sarah said the following: You used what you did to negotiate something for yourself. You are pure evil. You stole a mother away from her child, a daughter away from her mother. You are a monster. You are a coward. You can never be forgiven. When it was David's time to speak, he said the following: My illusions saw the COVID pandemic as an end of the world prophecy, an Armageddon that I felt compelled to escape no matter the cost. Instead of being a man, I chose to be a coward. I tried to steal what wasn't mine, and in the process, I ended a life. Her life had value. Her life had meaning, and I stole that life. David Anthony is scheduled to be released from prison in 2058, and he will be 81 years old. That's it.
I mean, I guess at least he will be old as hell. Maybe he will die before he gets out.
Let's hope. But that's the COVID murder. I never heard of it before. That's crazy.
I'm glad the family got answers, but it sucks that they had to wait that long.
Yeah, and they had to plea such a deal. just to bring her home. Yeah. 3 miles away from Gretchen's house. All right, everybody. So if you can't get enough of Operation Evil, consider supporting the podcast. There are many perks and different tiers to choose from. But regardless of what tier you pick, you will have a shout out from us and at least a 30-minute bonus episode per month that is exclusive to our supporters. But if you cannot join our Patreon, consider buying us a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Or if you want to support us for free, rate the show, whatever app you listen on, tell a friend, share our Facebook page. Any of these things really help us out and gets the word out. And we appreciate all of you for listening, as always. That's all I got. You got anything?
Nope.
All right. So anyway,
got nothing.
You guys stay safe and we will talk to you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.